Thank you very much. Well, I can't see you now. I can just see my screen. But my name is Pete Baker, and I'm in the UK. I lead a ministry in the UK called Pays Movement. Pays began in Manchester in 1992 with a simple vision to reach young people in schools and then to connect them with a local church in North Manchester. From the UK, it became an international organization. So we now work in 16 countries globally. I've been part of the organization for 20 years. And the main work that we do is working with young people in a school, in public schools, and then serving local churches to be more mission focused. A lot of our work is big presentations, but then a lot of our work is also small group for discipleship, for missional Bible study, for relationship building. And in this season, all of that work has gone online. So now a lot of our teams are figuring out how to do online discipleship, online Bible study, online small groups. And so in this session, I'd love to share with you some thoughts on discipleship. So this phrase here, how to disciple anyone, anywhere. So we're going to look at some discipleship principles, but then we're going to look at a really simple guide in how to lead a video call for the purpose of discipleship. But before we carry on, hopefully this will work, but I'd love to share with you a video clip about the organization that we lead.
Yeah, and if you're not gonna follow, I'd like you should.
We don't see the video. We just hear the music, but no video.
Okay. Okay, I'll stop the video. Sorry about that. I'll share a link to where all of those things are. Okay, so can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So in the chat, as we go on, I'll share some links. I'll share my email address and website links to the organization so you can read more of what we do. And I'll share my email so that if there's anything that isn't clear or if you want to carry on the conversation post this Zoom, then we can do that. Wonderful. Okay, so as I said, Pays is a schools ministry organization, a missions organization. And for a number of years now, we've been asking the question about discipleship. If this was the main event for Jesus, Matthew 28, Jesus said to his disciples, go into all the world and make disciples, then how do we make that the main event of our ministry? Paul Gibbs, who started Pays, is from the UK, leads Pays globally, wrote a great book called Talmudim. Talmudim is the Hebrew word for disciple. And so this book is about how to disciple anyone in anything. And so some of the ideas that I'm going to share today are from this book, Talmudim. And in Paul's teaching, he always has this Jesus question, a question that when we look through the lens of Jesus's teaching, it maybe provokes some thinking. So here's the Jesus question for discipleship. If Jesus took people on an experience that led to education, why do we educate people and hope they will have an experience? So what Paul's getting at here is that sometimes a church gathering or a discipleship meeting is passing on information, about Christian belief or Christian behavior. But Jesus's discipleship method was often taking people on an experience, taking his disciples to this town or to this city. Most of Jesus's teaching, most of his discipleship was on the road, was on a journey, was going from A to B. It often wasn't in an educational setting. It was often in the middle of an experience. And then the education, the passing on of information, happened after the experience. The experience happened, the healing, the miracle, the teaching, and then somebody asked the question, why did this happen? Who is my neighbor? What is going on here? And the discipleship, the education would happen after the experience. So that's our Jesus question. If Jesus took people on an experience that led to education, why do we educate people and hope that they have an experience? The way Pays is set up as an organization is with discipleship in mind. So hopefully you can see this picture. On the left-hand side of the screen is Paul Gibbs. So Paul leads Pays globally, is based in Texas, and he mentors national leaders of Pays in different countries. So the second picture is our former national director for Pays in Brazil, a guy called Junior. So Junior is one of a number, 16 national directors who leads Pays in a nation. Junior actually now lives in Germany with his wife, but this was a few years ago when he was in Brazil. So Paul disciples Junior, and their discipleship is about experiences. It's about doing things together, even though they live in different countries, utilizing technology to have shared experiences together. And we can talk more about that later if you want, what those experiences might be. And then the third picture are some of the leaders and some of the young people that Junior is mentoring. Also actually with Paul in this picture. So we have Paul discipling 16 national leaders. And then that national leader mentors or disciples people in their locality. Junior is then discipling, mentoring these leaders in Brazil. Then the fourth picture is a young person. At this time, he was 14 years old. He's a young leader in his school, leading a missional Bible study, leading friends to Jesus, sharing faith with his friends, being a leader in his community. And he's pictured here with Paul when Paul took a trip to Brazil. So Paul mentors Junior, Junior mentors his leaders, and then his leaders pour into the young people, disciple, invest into the young people. We call this the Talmudim flow, a flow of mentoring, a flow of discipleship. And actually what makes this possible, and what has made this possible for a number of years as Pays has gone global, is technology. So as Suzanne was saying before we had this call, Fusion have been using video technology, video chats for a number of years, even before this pandemic. And the same for us, we've been using video technology, Skype and Zoom and other things for a number of years in order to enable this kind of discipleship to happen. Paul passing on to Junior, Junior passing on to his leaders, and then raising up young people in their communities. A question I'd love to ask each one of you to consider is, who are you investing into? You know, if you imagine yourself as the first square in this picture, if you imagine yourself in that first square, who are you passing on to? Who are you discipling? Who are you intentionally mentoring? And are you training, equipping, empowering them to share this with somebody else? If you're discipling people, are you training those people to disciple others, to pour into others? And crucially, are you then training them how to pass it on? So for Paul Gibbs, he has this privilege of, he's one person in one location in North America, but because he's committed to discipleship, he's committed to mentoring, he's committed to taking people on this discipleship journey, there are thousands of young people like this one on the right-hand side who are being raised up and mentored all over the world because of this commitment to discipleship. So before we maybe move on to how do we do this within a video call, are there any thoughts or questions that people had at this point? I can't see you, so you'll have to unmute and speak. Okay. Are you all still there? Because I can't see anyone. Someone let me know that you're still there.
Yeah, I'm here, for example. You
I'm
cannot,
here.
you cannot see me?
I'm here.
Thank you. That's great. So
Sorry.
now for leading a call, leading a video call that's aimed at discipleship. As I said, we've been doing this for a number of years, but now we've been thinking more intentionally about this as our youth groups, our small group Bible studies, our discipleship relationships have moved online. So we've been trying to think through a simple format of how we can lead video calls well, how we can do discipleship well online. So here's our simple before, during, and after. So maybe 3 weeks ago, we had our PAIS Global Gathering. Normally, once a year, we have about 30 leaders that get together for 1 week in Texas to be taught for teaching, sharpening, vision, equipping, relationship. And obviously this year we couldn't do that in person. So we moved our global summit online onto Zoom. And what that meant was there was 60 of us for 1 week. We had 4 hours a day on Zoom for the same things, for teaching, for equipping, for training, for relationship. And so we learned a lot during that week about how we might do that well. 60 of us, 16 different countries, multiple different languages. But here was some of the process or the format of how we did this. So to lead the call, before you even do the call, here's some good things to think about. Number one, expectations. Setting the expectations. It might be that you want people to come to your session to answer a question. So last week I did a mentoring session with my national team on a specific subject. So before we did the video call, I sent out a question to say, I want you to be thinking about this in preparation for the video call. So expectations. I lead a small group in my church, and there's about maybe 5 or 10 people in our small group. Our small group has also moved onto video call. And during that small group, we've been watching the prayer course, which is a great course to help equip people for prayer. One of the expectations was that before we came to the group, that you would watch the prayer course, 20-minute clip before you would come to the group. So expectations, making those expectations clear. Etiquette. So this is things like muting, so there's not background noise. And again, before we did our global gathering a few weeks ago, we said to everybody, get into a room where there's good internet access and mute when you're not speaking. Etiquette as well, things like checking the chat. So as people are trying to engage with the conversation, somebody checking the chat to make sure that everybody is focused. Before, having a structure, so having some kind of plan. Here's what I'm going to do to engage people. Here are the kind of questions that I'm going to ask. So before you even start the call, having a structure, having some kind of guidelines to help keep the call on track. So that's before you even lead your discipleship call, lead your group on a video call, thinking about some of these things before the call. Then during the call, keeping it focused. Again, questions, space for people to ask questions, space for relationship. Again, depending on the group, it might be that you say, call 5 minutes before the meeting starts so that people can say hello to each other. Or if you've got 1 hour on your call together, you say, for the first 15 minutes, we're just going to see how everyone is. Or for the last 15 minutes, we're going to see how everyone is. So there's space for relationship building within the call. And if you're going to use breakout groups, which are a great feature of Zoom, if you're going to use breakout groups, then keep them focused, guide the breakout groups, maybe choose who's going to be in them and why are they breaking out, what are they going to do in the breakout groups. And the other thing I'd say about during is utilize the features. So right now we're sharing the screen. This is now obviously my audio didn't work for my video, so I apologize for that. But utilizing the features of the different technologies that you're using. Zoom is great for breakout groups and for sharing the screen. I was on a Google Hangout earlier today, and again, Google Hangout could also share the screen. So whatever application you're using, utilize the features of that application. And finally, after you finish the call, provide notes if needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my email address. So if you want notes on how we approach discipleship as pays, if you want website links, then I'll give you my email address so you can ask me for all of that and I will send you whatever you want. Provide recording if necessary. This is being recorded. Debrief or feedback. That's more relevant if you're meeting with somebody on a regular basis. Like I have a small group every week. It might be that you've got a young adults or a youth group that you meet with every week online. Debrief, feedback. Did this work? Was it helpful? Was your internet access good? Etc. So I'll pause there to see if there's any questions at this point. And maybe what I'll do is I'll stop the share so I can actually see you. I can see you again now. I've missed you. Okay, so if does anyone have any questions from what I've shared so far? Does anyone here have experience in leading small groups and you want to share your experience with us?
Yes, I have been leading small groups online, actually even before the virus came, because we were forced to, because of a strike here in Paris for the transportation. So we couldn't meet. So it was an interesting experience. I just kind of started learning and got on there and started gathering the students online. And we've been learning together how to put it together. So it's interesting. I guess they took it as kind of a stopgap measure, but I'm trying to switch the mentality, you know, and get them excited about using internet and being online as a permanent part of our ministry, especially to reach out. So we had a brainstorming session, and we're going to try to implement some of those ideas. But if you have any ideas about how to switch that focus, I mean, since you're going to that mode right now, was there any resistance that you had?
Any resistance we had to going online?
Yes.
Yeah, great question. Well, one of the big challenges for our schools teams is to find the young people. So that's a real challenge. So in the real world or the world before the pandemic, they were running small groups in schools, in churches, after school, in buildings, you know, in people's homes. And so now a big challenge for a lot of those youth workers is to try and find those young people and also work with them safely online. That's a huge thing. You know, how do you engage with young people in a safe way online? So Instagram has been a big thing for us. Young people can follow, like a lot of our teams will have a team page. So young people aren't engaging with individual youth workers. They're engaging with the team, the group, maybe the youth ministry or the local church. So a lot of those groups will have a lot of followers, and those followers will be the young people. But it's still, the engagement it can be a real challenge. So our global conference that we did online was really great. All of us are, you know, in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So we were already engaged. We were already happy sharing information. My small group of young adults, some of them have dropped off when we went online. But then for other people, they found it easier to come into the conversation maybe they found it harder to come to a home for whatever reason, but they found it easier to jump in to an online conversation. But no, there has been resistance from some. Some people just disappeared. And that this is I guess, a general issue for us, for youth ministry in the UK, and not just for Christian youth workers, for non-Christian youth workers, finding young people. We know where they are, they're in their homes, but we can't go to their homes, and maybe we can't get, and they are online, but maybe they're not online where we are, you know. So that can be a real challenge. Yeah, creating content that young people want to come to, almost a sense of there's a over stimulus of online content, and when young people are going online, they don't necessarily want to see me. They're going online maybe to avoid adults. They're going online to engage with each other. So I think there's going to be a big piece around how do we, like, peer to peer. We know that young people sharing faith with young people is a real key. So how do we engage young people, maybe to create groups for other young people, or young adults to create groups for other young adults? That's who they want to see. So we know in the UK, young people are really missing other young people. They can't go to school. They can't gather in public places. So they're missing their friends. They're missing school, incredibly. They're missing these safe, gathered environments. So how do we harness that, young people gathering with young people? But you are right. There's definite resistance for some people. Yeah. Somebody did ask a question. So yeah, Curtis, could you repeat the quote from the beginning about the journey? Where is Curtis? Yeah, Curtis, can you just remind me what that was?
Hi. Yeah, it was the quote that you said from the author of the book, something about Jesus going on the journey and presenting information. I wanted to write that down, but I've got it all mixed up in my head. So I would appreciate you repeating that. Thanks. Sorry, that was not this section, but the section before.
Yeah, that's fine. There we go. So the Jesus question. If Jesus took people on an experience that led to education, why do we just educate people and hope they have an experience? Is that the one you were asking about?
Yes, that was the one. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's an intentionally provocative question, and it's definitely not trying to devalue education. It's more trying to flip it around to say Jesus's model seemed to be going on an experience, and there's so many. It's hard to find an example of Jesus doing what we would do, So we can. There's in Luke's gospel we have Jesus in a pulpit in a church, not in a church, sorry, in a synagogue, reading text, and then dropping the text, dropping the mic, and then walking out. But other than that, there's not many occasions where he's in a gathered environment. So that is not to say stop doing gathered environments or stop doing public meetings, not at all. But it's more to say, well, Jesus's discipleship method seemed to be on the road, on the journey, on the experience. He takes his disciples to this location for a specific reason. He engages with people to provoke a question. And then when somebody asks a question, he then brings his teaching. So the way Paul Gibbs puts it, in terms of these experiences, so when we're thinking about discipleship, we're always trying to create experiences for people. So our experiences might be memorable, as in it might have been something that happened previously. So when Paul speaks to Junior or Paul speaks to me, he might say, do you remember last year? Or if I'm with a young person, I might say, do you remember we went to this big event last summer? We went to this worship event last summer. So it's memorable. It's something we've already done. Or it's artificial. It's a case study. It's made up. It's a scenario. I want you to imagine, almost like a parable, I want you to imagine there's these three people. I want you to imagine this scenario. What would you do? Or what would you learn from this? Or it's actual. We're doing this now together. So for some of the people that I've mentored or discipled, maybe in public speaking, evangelism, praying for people, it might be the best way to teach someone how to pray is praying. So let's say I want to train 10 young adults in how to share their faith or pray for people. What I might say is, okay, let's go on an experience. Let's go. We're going to meet, and today we're going to go out to the streets, and we're going to try and talk to people, share something about faith, and maybe pray for people together. And we do it in a safe way. You know, we have goals, we have some kind of framework for it, and then we come back into the church building or the coffee shop or whatever, and we ask what worked, what happened, etc., etc. So we're asking these kind of then learning questions. We prayed for this person and this happened. We asked this person this question and we got rejected. We asked this person this question and they were open to a conversation. What can we learn from this? So all the education comes from the experience. And that's the premise, I guess, of the whole Talmudine book. The link that I gave you, Talmudine Flow. Essentially, the Talmudine Flow is we've looked at Jesus's model for discipleship, and we've looked at how does anybody learn anything, and we've put those two things together. So if you'd like to look at that anymore with us, we'd love to meet with you and your groups, and we'd love to go through the Talmudine Flow and share that with you, how you might do the Talmudine Flow in your localities. I think we've got 2 minutes left. So is there another question or another thought? The author of the prayer course is Pete Gregg from 24/7 Prayer. So that's the prayercourse.org. I'll just quickly write that as well. Really, really excellent. And again, really fits into actually what we're talking about here, because the prayer course, they're 20-minute sessions that are free to watch on YouTube or also on the prayercourse.org website. But then you put it into practice. So what we've been doing as a small group is we watch the course on our own, and then we come together and discuss it. And then what we're trying to do in each of our groups is do one of the practices. So it might be prayer as contemplation, or prayer as spiritual warfare. And so we put that into practice in our group. If we're meeting at our homes, we'd watch the video together. But because we're not in our homes, we watch the video separately and then from the prayer course together. Very quickly, before I say goodbye, PAYS offers a free gap year in youth and schools ministry all over the world. So if you know any young adults, or if you want to talk to me more about how you might connect with the work of PAYS, we'd love to resource mission, youth work and schools work across Europe. So I've put all of my details there, my email address, our website. Well, I think I should say goodbye because you've got another session. Is that right?
Thank you so much, Pete.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you all. And I'll leave the conversation now, Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pete. It was very useful. You said that you have a gap year, so you are international. In how many states you are, like PAYS movement?
Yes, with 16 nations globally. In Europe, it's England, Northern Ireland, and Germany. So yeah, we'd love to see PAYS developing in other countries. So we started in the UK. Then the guy that started it, Paul, moved to America. So we work in India, Pakistan, North America, Australia. But yeah, we've not taken off in Europe. So we'd love to connect with other European leaders. Me and Peter have spoken before about Czech Republic and other nations around that. But yeah. So paysmovement.com is the website to look at that for more information.